Representative Pramila Jayapal didn't ease into this hearing. She launched straight into a level of pressure that made the room freeze. From the very first moment, she demanded answers about why the story around the Epstein files shifted so dramatically and why the FBI's public promises suddenly collapsed overnight. Her tone wasn't aggressive without purpose. It was sharp because something didn't add up. For months, FBI Director Kash Patel had been telling the public there would be transparency, that every document would be revealed, and that the days of secrecy were over. But when she confronted him about the sudden reversal, his reaction spoke louder than any prepared statement.
Questions recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, before you joined the FBI, you had very strong opinions about what the FBI was hiding regarding Jeffrey Epstein. In a September 2023 interview with Glenn Beck, you said the Black Book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. In December 2023, you said, let us know who the pedophiles are. Even for a short time after becoming FBI director, in February of 2025, you tweeted, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned. In June, you told Joe Rogan, quote, we've reviewed all the information, we're gonna give you every single thing we have and can. But then suddenly in July, everything changed. You and Attorney General Pam Bondi released one video and said that there was nothing more to see. Your July memo says you uncovered more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, but that you had decided no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That is a quote. I think what happened, Mr. Patel, is that suddenly you discovered that Donald Trump's name was all over these files, and you started a giant cover-up. So you are under oath, Mr. Patel. You just testified to Mr. Swalwell that you did not speak to the president about the Epstein files. To your knowledge, did Attorney General Pam Bondi speak to the president about what was in the Epstein files?
I can't speak for Attorney General Pam Bondi.
So to your knowledge, you don't have any information. The question was, do you have any knowledge? Do you have any knowledge?
I can't speak.
You are refusing to answer the question, so let me tell you that the Wall Street Journal reported that in May, Bondi told Trump that he was in the Epstein files, and at the same meeting said that the DOJ did not plan to release the files. Yesterday, you testified to Senator Kennedy that there was, quote, no credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone else, and that you have, quote, continuously and publicly asked the public to come forward with more information, and we'll look into it. Today, in response to Mr. Massey's question, you appear to say that the survivors were not credible. These are survivors.
That's not at all what I said.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you this in a second, but let me tell you about the survivors, and let's bring them up here into the room. These are women who came to the Hill and testified that they were groomed and raped at the age of 14 and 16 years old, and they called to meet with the president and to meet with the FBI and to have people investigate their claims. Some of them have never testified before. If you are so interested in getting the public to submit any information, why have you not met with them? You said you haven't met with them. Have you met with them? I'll give you one more chance.
My job as the FBI director is to invite
Is
all
the answer yes or no
leads
to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped?
Any insinuation by you or any people on your side that I am not manhunting child predators and sex traffickers, just look at the stats.
Patel,
and you talk about cover-ups, man.
Mr. Chairman,
you talk about cover-ups.
And I will take as much time as I
Where
want.
were you during the Obama and Biden
Mr.
administrations when these so-called cover-ups were going on? Why didn't anyone in those administrations talk to any of these purported witnesses?
I have some regular order,
every single person to provide credible information.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Washington.
And I'm going to take another couple of minutes.
When you accuse the witness of something, he's allowed to respond. That's how it works.
Listen, he didn't even, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you have always been fair. But this is not fair.
And you will get
no, this is my time, and he said that the witnesses were not credible.
Seconds of time.
I'm going to get an additional minute of time because that's how much time he took.
You won't get a minute. You'll get some seconds. What we think is under 5 minutes. You don't get to demand how much time you get. That's not how it works.
Mr. Patel, are the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein horrific trafficking ring, are they credible?
Any person with information about ongoing sexual trafficking.
I'm asking you if they're credible.
Ma'am, I'm commenting on the evidence we have.
But
we have routinely asked for people to come forward with more evidence, and we will look at it. And the evidence that we have was the same evidence that the Biden and Obama Justice Departments had. And they determined, not me, they determined that information was not credible.
Chairman, he's not letting me even ask my questions.
You ask the questions, he gives an answer. You may not like what he says, but that doesn't mean you get to interrupt
him. He's not answering my question.
Mr. Chairman, could we restore the gentlelady 45 seconds so she can complete her question?
We will give her additional 30 seconds, which is what I said earlier.
I'm going to keep taking my time. Because
you'll take the time that you get.
You are not answering the question. The question is,
you just don't like the answer.
Are these women credible? It's a yes or no answer.
I have answered the question.
Well, what is the answer?
I keep telling you, I'm the only FBI director that has welcomed new information in this case. This administration is the only one that has welcomed any new information in this case.
Is there a yes or no to
present new credible information? Present new information.
Are the victims credible or not?
I'll tell you what happened in the last Trump administration.
Are they credible or not? You can't even say.
Victims credibly came forward, and you know what happened? President Trump authorized the indictments of Jeffrey Epstein. Not Biden, not Obama.
President Trump
no one else.
called the entire thing a Democratic hoax. So I would like to ask you,
the gentlelady's time has expired. I gave her the additional 45 seconds she requested. The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for his 5 minutes.
If you would meet with the women who were sexually abused and raped and groomed at the ages of 14 and 16 years old. Are you going to cover up?
No,
are you going to continue to cover up for the rich and powerful men, including those that might be on this committee?
I can yell too, Mr. Chairman, but I don't want to yell above this.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. I appreciate the gentlelady yielding back.
Are you going to allow them to testify, Mr. Patel?
Go ahead.
Will you allow them to testify to you, Mr. Patel?
Mr. Patel, thank you for being here. I know it's been an interesting and difficult 2 days. And I wasn't going to talk about the Epstein thing because there's a lot of other issues that affect the FBI, but I have to say a few words. I've sat.
And that's where this clash began to take on a life of its own. Because the moment she started pressing him on why everything changed in July, the tension in the room shifted instantly. She recited his own words back to him, ones he'd repeated publicly. No cover-ups, nothing hidden, no stones left unturned. He'd said it to journalists, in interviews, on podcasts, bold declarations meant to reassure the public. But Jayapal pointed out the moment everything flipped. 1 month, he was vowing full disclosure. The next, he was saying the public had seen all they needed to see. He and the Attorney General released a single video and declared the matter closed, even though they admitted there were over 300 gigabytes of evidence. That contradiction was the spark behind her line of questioning, and her message was clear. You don't collect that much information only to say there's nothing worth showing. As she pushed deeper, the air in the room got heavier. Because she wasn't just questioning his decisions, she was exposing the timeline. The shift wasn't gradual. It wasn't explained. It was abrupt. And when she laid out how quickly his certainty turned into silence, he didn't give a clean answer. He didn't explain why transparency suddenly became not appropriate. Instead, he hesitated and tried to redirect. That was the moment viewers could feel the room turning into something far more explosive. And she wasn't done. Not even close. Because the real pressure came when she began asking questions he clearly didn't want to answer. She asked him directly if the Attorney General had conversations with senior officials about the contents of the files. His answer wasn't no. His answer wasn't yes. His answer was a refusal to speak for her. But Jayapal wasn't asking him to speak for anyone, just to confirm whether he had any knowledge of conversations. When he kept dodging, she pressed him again, and again, and again. He wouldn't commit to a simple acknowledgement. Every time he tried to steer the answer somewhere else, she brought him back to the question. The refusal itself became the answer. And that's what made the moment so powerful. Then she dropped a detail that pulled the room into full silence. Reports had circulated months earlier claiming that a senior Justice Department official privately informed the administration that certain names, significant names, appeared repeatedly throughout the files. Jayapal highlighted that leak as part of the broader concern about transparency. She pointed out that after those internal discussions were reportedly held behind closed doors, the investigation mysteriously came to a halt. Whether those reports were accurate or not, the timing raised serious questions. Rumors suggest that when this information reached the top levels, everything slowed. Everything tightened. And suddenly, instead of expanding the investigation, the focus shifted to restricting disclosure. Jayapal didn't claim the rumors were fact. She didn't state the leaks were confirmed. Instead, she framed them exactly as they have circulated: unverified, concerning, and impossible to ignore. And when she asked Patel directly whether he had any knowledge of conversations between leadership and the Attorney General about the content of the files, he wouldn't give a straight answer. Not once. That moment set the tone for the rest of the exchange, because from there, it only escalated. The hearing reached a new level when she shifted to the survivors. It was impossible not to feel the weight of her words when she began speaking about the women and girls whose lives were permanently shattered by this trafficking ring. She spoke slowly at first, not for theatrics, but because the details were horrifying. Some of these women were 14 when the abuse began, others 16. Many had never testified publicly before. They had come to Congress, not for politics, but because for years they felt ignored. They wanted to meet with investigators. They wanted to share their accounts. They wanted to provide new information. And they specifically asked for meetings with senior leadership. That's when Jayapal asked Patel if he had met with these survivors. His earlier public statements suggested he was open to meeting anyone with information. He said repeatedly he welcomed new details. Yet when she asked him directly whether he had met with them, his answer was no. And that contradicted everything he had been saying about wanting new leads. She pressed him again. How can you claim to welcome new information if you refuse to meet with the very people who lived through the worst parts of this case? He reacted strongly, insisting he never dismissed the survivors' credibility. He referenced statistics. He referenced past administrations. He pointed to decisions made years earlier. But while he was talking around the issue, he never addressed the core question: why he didn't meet with them. That disconnect made the room feel even hotter. And Jayapal didn't let it slide. She repeated the question until it became painfully clear he wasn't going to offer a real explanation. Instead, he kept falling back on broad statements about reviewing credible information, without defining what that meant or why these women were excluded from that definition. Then came the most heated part of the confrontation, her demand for a yes or no. She asked if the victims were credible. That was the entire question. No subtext, no complication, a simple yes or no. But he refused to say either word. He said he commented on the evidence. He said he welcomed new tips. He said previous administrations made decisions. But he didn't say yes. And he didn't say no. Just long, winding responses that carefully avoided the point. The longer he avoided it, the more obvious it became that he didn't want to commit to an answer. And Jayapal kept cutting through the noise, reminding him that this wasn't about politics. It was about survivors waiting for justice. The hearing room began slipping into chaos as she persisted. Members began arguing about time, interruptions, fairness, and procedure. Voices layered over each other. The chairman tried to regain control, but the tension was too high. Jayapal demanded extra time. The chairman resisted. Other members chimed in. The pressure rose second by second. It was one of those moments where the institution itself seemed to strain under the weight of the subject matter. And through all of it, Patel continued giving the same non-answer, that he had commented on the evidence, that he welcomed credible information, that decisions were made years earlier. But Jayapal wasn't rattled. She kept her focus on the survivors. She pointed out the core contradiction. How can leadership claim they want information from the public while refusing to meet the actual people harmed in the case? Her approach wasn't theatrical, it was relentless. She wanted a yes or no about whether these women were credible. And Patel never gave one. Not once. Instead, he repeated the same lines until the chairman finally cut her time off. Once her time ended, the room didn't calm down. The next member tried to shift to a different area of oversight, but even he felt compelled to comment on the emotional impact of the exchange. He called the hearing chaotic. He acknowledged how heavy the subject matter was. And he admitted that he hadn't intended to speak about the Epstein case at all, but the explosive confrontation made it impossible to avoid. In other words, Jayapal's questioning didn't just dominate her own allotted time. It reshaped the entire hearing. From that point on, it felt like every person in the room knew something deeper was happening. The questions weren't only about documents or evidence management. They were about trust, credibility, transparency, and whether leadership was willing to confront the full truth, even when that truth was uncomfortable, damaging, or politically explosive. What became clear was that the public had been promised clarity, but clarity was not what they received. Instead, they got a short video, a sudden halt to disclosures, and hundreds of gigabytes of information sealed away without explanation. What Jayapal exposed wasn't just inconsistencies. She highlighted unanswered questions that still linger. Why did the investigation's tone shift so drastically in July? Why was there hesitation to speak with survivors? Why were simple yes or no questions met with evasive, repetitive replies? And perhaps most importantly, what was in that evidence that justified shutting down further disclosure? None of those questions were resolved in the hearing. None received clear answers. And that's why this moment resonated so strongly. Because when a case involves victims who've waited years for justice, any sign of hesitation becomes a matter of public concern. Any refusal to answer becomes a statement in itself. And any sudden shift in transparency becomes a warning sign. What this hearing proved is that the public still doesn't have the full story. Not even close. And until those gaps are filled, the pressure for accountability will only continue to grow. The survivors deserve clarity. The public deserves honesty. And the people in charge owe more than vague explanations and shifting narratives. If you want more breakdowns like this, deep dives into major hearings, hidden moments that the cameras don't focus on, and the stories behind the political fireworks, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and you deserve to know every detail they hope you miss.